What is going on, 12s? Welcome back to another episode of the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. Now, today I will be starting my two-part free agency primer video where I'll be talking about some targets, what I think the Seahawks should be looking out for in free agency. And the way I did this is that I said, you know what, I'm going to do a top five positions. I actually did six with one being kind of a bonus, an interesting scenario. I ended up making six positions that I said these are the positions that we definitely need the most this offseason. Now, I took into account how I expect the roster to look like. I expect to retain Ernest Jones. I expect that Tyler Lockett, that Draymond Jones, that Rayshawn Jenkins, that Noah Fant will all be cut. I expect, extensions to happen and things like that. So I took that into account when building up this list. Now, what I found is that the list that I made, I kind of separated the players in those certain positions into different tiers, but some positions I only have two tiers. Like I try to do expensive, medium, and cheap. And some positions I had expensive and medium, some positions I had medium and cheap. And I figured that it wouldn't be enough for one video. If I were to do a video about a specific position target and I had four players to talk about, really not much going on there. So the way I decided to do it is to cram six positions into two videos. This video will be about offensive weapons. I'm counting that as quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. One of those positions is not listed as a target, but that is what I kind of categorize as playmakers, people that can make plays on your offense. The second position will be all about the trenches, which will be which the positions that I have chosen are tackle, guard, and defensive tackle. We will be talking all about that in the next video. So I listed out some targets, some guys that I found really interesting, and let's have some fun. Let's talk free agents. Let's talk. I love this time of the year where teams rumors are flying. I love how the second it hits free agency in the NFL, players sign, and by like the third day, there's like basically no one out there. That's what I love about the NFL, and I'm so excited to break down some players that I think are really interesting, really intriguing. And let's just hop right in. Let's just hop right on in. Let's start with what positions I said are needs on the offensive weapon side of the ball. I said wide receiver and tight end are two of the top five needs. Like I said, this is assuming that Tyler Lockett and Noah Fant are both cut. This is assuming that we don't like retain Farrell Brown, anything like that. I had these both listed as needs. I really do think that the Seahawks, especially with the Clint Kubiak offense, will need to address the tight end position. And I think that the Seahawks, frankly, right now have a crucial lack of speed on the offensive side of the football. Last year we saw it. Tyler Lockett was really slow last year. And he was good for like possession catches, but he was not really getting open downfield. It was pretty concerning to watch. And after that, DK, maybe Kubiak has different plans for him, but he was not getting a lot of separation downfield. Think about how many huge plays DK had this year where he purely used his athleticism to get wide open and just did it. That didn't really happen much this year. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is a great slot receiver. I don't think he's really an outside fit, and he doesn't really have game-changing speed. So for receivers, I listed exclusively guys that I do not have any expensive targets at receiver. I really don't think that's a position that you should spend a lot of money on. And I went mostly off the spot track, which is kind of shaky. Sometimes they have some low projections for some players that will get paid very well. So I know that I'm going to look at that and kind of use that in my own mind. But we will just look at these offensive weapons, some guys that I picked. And then the bonus position that I listed was quarterback. Now, I have two scenarios listed at quarterback. I have targets if Geno is traded or cut, and I have targets if Geno isn't cut, because frankly, I think we should go out and get a quarterback anyways, because we saw how bad Sam Howell was. I think we need to give him some competition in camp to prove that he deserves to be the backup. And I listed some guys there that have connections to staff and all that. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the top need that I listed. I said wide receiver was the number 4 need behind the three trench positions. I really think we need a wide receiver that could really make plays. Also, one that won't be very expensive. So let's break down some of these names. In the medium money tier, I had 2 names listed. The first name that I think will get medium money, Spot Track does not have him listed really much as a guy that's going to get paid, but I think he will. Nick Westbrook Akine from the Tennessee Titans. Now, if you look up his stats, he did not really have a crazy season. He didn't blow anything up. He didn't have like 800 yards. He had 32 catches for 500 yards. The really interesting thing to me is average of 15 yards per reception and 9 touchdowns on 32 catches. That is crazy. This dude had basically a touchdown every 4 receptions. I think that's the type of playmaker that the Seahawks need. And I am a avid red zone watcher. I do not live in Seattle, so when the Seahawks are on, the only way I can see the game is to watch red zone and then go back and watch the game in full, like on NFL Plus. That's the only way that I can see the Seahawks. I'm a big red zone watcher. I felt like for the Titans last year, I saw Nick Westbrook Akine make a lot of plays. He really is fast, but he's also a really interesting build. He's not like a small little speedster type that like can like just kind of sneak through and get open and he's gonna find his way. He is fairly big as a receiver. I think he's around 6'2". He can really fly. Last year, PFF had him at a 63 grade, but he had the 8th most touchdowns of any receiver on 32 catches. And I think this guy has a real game changing speed. He's 27 years old. This could be a guy that could be here for the next few years. I really think Westbrook Akine would be a good target as a guy that can play on the outside and can really burn downfield. And I think that's a key piece that the Seahawks have been missing. And I think Westbrook Akine would be a really interesting fit in the Seattle system. Now, moving on to my second and last medium money target. This guy has a chance to get paid, but the wide receiver market in free agency typically is not that crazy. And I will be saying that he will be getting around medium money. I have Diami Brown from the Washington Commanders. Now, we saw this guy have a really big playoffs, a really big kind of breakout year after Jaden Daniels just remarkable rookie year. He's so fun to watch. And Diami Brown was making a lot of plays in the playoffs. He was really getting open downfield in the middle of the field. Brown is an interesting name. He is young. He's younger, which is why he could get paid, especially because he had a big game on national TV. Big games, plural, on national TV, could really propel him to get paid a lot of money, maybe get overpaid. But receivers, the receiver market is very oversaturated, especially for kind of those mid-tier receivers where the top end receivers are getting a lot of money and the bottom tier guys sometimes get overpaid, but sometimes they kind of get left out. And it's interesting to see how they are going to play Diami Brown's market. Maybe most teams only see him as a number 3 and he'll get 3 years, 820 million, right? That's a totally fine, reasonable contract. But then every once in a while you get the Christian Kirks that go to Jacksonville on like a 4 year, what did he get? Like 70 something $1 million. That was an unbelievable contract. And he's played fine, but it's still an overpay. I think Brown has the chance to be a type that does get overpaid, but if his market falls the right way, Brown has a lot of playmaking potential and he flashed it in the playoffs and he's young and he's a guy that could come up with DK and JSN, assuming that DK stays around. If DK gets moved, like there are some rumors, I haven't really seen any official things, but there's some rumors. If DK gets moved, wide receiver could become maybe the number 2 need this offseason, obviously still behind offensive line, which we will be talking about in the next video. Now, like I said, Brown could be the type that gets a 3 year, $45 million contract. And suddenly you're like, I don't really want to pay that. Maybe Nick Westbrook Akine, they're saying, hey, you were on Tennessee, man, but we saw your playmaking potential. We're going to give you 3 years, 30. You don't really want to pay that either. Now, Let's go to the bargain bin names. These are names that are not going to get paid a lot, yet I feel have a interesting way of affecting an offense, and guys that I think you could get maybe on like a 1 year three, and they kind of have that breakout year. Maybe not even a breakout year, a 1 year three, and they get you 30 catches for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's all you need, especially if you're going to be factoring in more tight end work with Clint Kubiak. That's really all you need. Let's talk about the bargain bin names. I have 3 names in bargain bin that really caught my eye right off the bat. The first one is kind of an obvious name, I feel like, especially after the Clint Kubiak hire. I listed Marquez Valdez Scantling as a name to watch for the Seahawks. Valdez Scantling can play on the outside. He's played on Super Bowl winning teams. He's played on a lot of good teams. Was with the Saints last year, and when he went to the Saints, was like oddly very effective. Like he signed in the middle of the season and randomly had a respectable year. There are on r slash Saints, there are people saying we need to re-sign MVS next season. He's 30 years old, on the older side for a receiver. But in 19 games, I mean, in 19 catches, 411 yards, 4 touchdowns. We'll talk about big play potential. This guy was averaging 20 yards a catch for the Saints last year, and he only played in 8 games. That has like a really interesting potential to really affect this offense. Clearly, Kubiak knows how to use him. And I think for MVS, if you're looking between maybe a better offer for a playoff team versus going with Kubiak to Seattle, you might say, hey, maybe I want to keep balling out with Clint Kubiak. And I think he has that outside size. He's around 6 feet. He's 6'4", 206. That is a big boy. Could go up and maybe make some of those contested catches. And he's a name that has hit on a ton of home run balls last year, clearly found success in Kubiak's offense. I think MVS is the perfect guy to go snag on a 1 year for. Go get him, bring him in, have him be the outside receiver, and then maybe he can be a bridge towards a younger number 3 next year, maybe one that you pick in the draft. And once again, that is another factor. Seahawks could always pick a receiver in the draft. John Schneider has done that pretty well in the past, so we will see how that works out. But MVS is my first bargain bin name. My second bargain bin name is an interesting name to watch because he hasn't really played much receiver. He's more so known kind of as a return specialist, a guy that can get out in open field and make plays. I'm thinking about Tylan Wallace, the Ravens wide receiver. In his career, only 27 catches for 260 yards. However, last year, it is worth noting that he had 193 yards last year, 11 catches, 1 touchdown, 17 and a half yards a catch. Wallace is a really interesting name. He's had a lot of success as a wide receiver. I liked him a lot when he was coming out of the draft. He's had a lot of success as a kick returner. And I think that alone is a huge aspect where Wallace has home run speed and he's an effective, steady kick returner. I think he was the Ravens kick returner all 4 years that he was there since his rookie contract ended. Maybe that's a reason why they will give out a good amount of money to bring him back. But we know how bad the Seahawks kick returning situation was last year. Wallace is really fast. I think if you wanted to play him and receiver, he would at least offer game-changing speed that could really help your offense, something that you were missing a lot of last year. And also, I think Wallace, just as a kick returner in general, would really shore up that position. That's really all I have to say about Wallace. I just think it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the Mike McDonald connection there, knows him from Baltimore. Maybe something to watch. That's all I'm going to say. My last name is a super bargain bin name. He's a receiver that's been bouncing around a few years here. But regardless, I think he's interesting. Barely really did anything last year. 4 catches for 31 yards. But he's a guy that's really fast. He's only 28 years old. He's 6'3", and he's had a lot of success in his past. And last year, maybe it wasn't the right fit. He got hurt. He only played 7 games. I'm thinking about DJ Chark from the LA Chargers. This guy had a really down year, which is why I think you could get him on a super cheap contract. He flew at the combine a few years ago, and he is really fast. I think he has problems with drops, but regardless, he is not going to be your number one. Get him in for his speed. Get him in because you know he can succeed. He played with Harbaugh last year. That could be a connection that Mike McDonald sees. Regardless, I think Chark is a name that veteran, experience, fast. When you're getting a receiver this offseason, you have to think about either contested catch or fast. You need someone that can hit the home run ball. We did not have that consistently last year. I think if we can add that this offseason with a cheap name, that is really interesting. My favorite from the group, assuming that he falls in at the contract I expect him to, is Nick Westbrook Akine. I kind of expect him to fall in at around 2 years, maybe 12 million. Um, I think his speed would just be a real game changer. If not, if you're going bargain bin, I think MVS and Tylan Wallace are both really interesting options that fill certain spots that really make sense, and I think you can get them for super cheap. So let's move on to our next position group here. We're going to tight ends. Tight end was listed as my number 5 need, mostly because I kind of like AJ Barner. I don't see him as a number 1. I think everyone else that we would get at tight end would kind of be complementary rather than being a stud. So let's go through these names. I did have a big money name for the tight end rankings, mostly because this is a really thin tight end group, and we did see tight ends get paid a lot last year. Noah Fant got 2 years, 23. Colby Parkinson got 3 years, 24. Like these guys got a lot of money, which is why this guy, I thought maybe we could get him for cheap, but it turns out he's probably going to get a pretty good contract. I'm talking about Juwan Johnson from the New Orleans Saints. This is a guy, the Clint Kubiak connection is obvious. He's a steady blocker, and he was a huge aspect of the Saints passing game situation last year. 50 receptions, 548 yards, 3 touchdowns. Huge in the red zone. I hear he's great at catching the ball when it's tight coverage, when you need a catch. Johnson is a name that apparently really came through for the Saints consistently. He obviously has that Kubiak connection. The downside, he's 28, coming off a career year. He will probably get something like a 3-year 30, maybe a 3-year 28, something like that. You know, a good amount of money, maybe amount of money that you're not comfortable spending on a tight end. But you just gave Noah Fant 11. Why wouldn't you give a guy that's better that maybe Clint Kubiak really likes 10 if you really think the tight end is going to be that important? I'd be much happier swapping Noah Fant with the guy that Clint Kubiak really likes and trusting Clint Kubiak to run his offense. That's just my take. All in all, though, Juwan Johnson is the one big money name because of his age and because of the year that he just had. Now let's go to the medium money names. My first name, Tyler Conklin from the New York Jets. An interesting pick here. Conklin is a guy that's just a steady blocker, and he catches the ball. Like when I was picking tight ends, I was really thinking, dude, we need guys that can block. Like if we can get a steady run blocker at tight end, it takes off a lot of pressure from your offensive line. And we know how much our offensive line has struggled in years past. He had a great year last year, 51 catches, 449 yards, 4 touchdowns. Maybe he gets a big deal. I think he probably gets less than Juwan Johnson, but still, maybe he gets a big deal. Who knows? I think Conklin is a pretty steady pick, though. A guy that has solid hands, a guy that can block, just a guy that's overall trustworthy, that fills a tight end role that you need, a guy that can block, get a blocking tight end that is not Pharaoh Brown, please. We're going to go to the second and last medium money pick that I had for tight end. I said Mo Alley Cox from the Indianapolis Colts. Now, this is an interesting name, mostly because he could be really cheap. I, after reading a little bit about him, will venture to think that he will not be cheap. I think Tennessee really likes him. I think they value him a lot. I hear he's kind of a leader in that building. Did not have a huge year last year. 12 catches, 147 yards, only a touchdown. He is 31. You know, hey, maybe they don't see much in him. Maybe he can be cheap. I hear Tennessee really likes him. It's interesting to talk about. The reason why I picked Mo Alley Cox is because he is renowned apparently as a blocker. Like I said, he's renowned as a leader in that Indianapolis locker room. I really think that this team needs more leaders. I think Mo Alley Cox, if he wanted to step in and be that, is good. He's a high level blocker and also really solid in contested catches. He's a former basketball player, good at boxing out downfield. He's got big hands. I've seen him make a ton of plays when he's covered by a corner one-on-one where he just goes up and gets it because he's big. He's 6'5". You know, I think Mo Alley Cox could add a lot. Don't be surprised if he's the type to get like a sneaky 2 year 9 million, 2 year 10 million because he can block and he's big enough and he can catch and he's well renowned not only for the Colts but around the league. I think that's an interesting thing to watch for the Seahawks. I would really like Mo Ali Cox as a pick. Keep an eye on him as a potential ad at tight end. Now we're going to go to the three bargain bin names. These guys are blockers, guys that just have good connections. First name, I don't know if he's even going to play this year. How cool would it be to have Mercedes Lewis on the Seahawks this year? The 40-year-old tight end, Mercedes Lewis, is just a renowned leader of men. He had one catch for 2 yards. He will be dirt cheap. He is known and just loved as a super steady blocking tight end. A super steady blocking tight end. And I think that says a lot. I think that like if he can come in, be a leader, and block well, hey, that's all we need here. Like that is really all we need. And he played in Jacksonville for so long with mediocre stats uh because he's a great blocker. And they went to Green Bay for 4 years. He didn't even have like 500 yards in 4 years in Green Bay. Guess what? They loved him there. He was one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite guys. He's been in Chicago for the last 2 years. He's had 31 total yards. Yet he's played in all 17 games because he gets in and he's not fast, but he lays the boom and he can block and he leads and he's loved by everyone in the locker room. I think Mercedes Lewis, if he doesn't retire, you want to come in and block? You want to come in and block for Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet and maybe leak out and catch a 1 yard touchdown? Wouldn't that be cool? Come on over here and play. That's how I see it. I think Mercedes Lewis would be a really fun name, but also a very practical name. A guy that can block. Please get a blocking tight end. My second name, Johnny Munt. Once again, blocking. He's from Minnesota. Minnesota connection. He doesn't really have a direct connection to Kubiak, but Minnesota, maybe Kubiak watches. I don't know. I just listed that as a thing. But he played for Minnesota the last few years. I remember watching a lot of Minnesota's games, and they kept talking about Johnny Munt because Hawkinson was hurt, missing time. Munt stepped in. Wasn't like prolific, but he was solid, and he's renowned as a good blocker. Once again, just kind of loved by the coaches there. I think Munt makes a lot of sense for this team. The last pick, Jordan Akins, another blocker tight end from the Cleveland Browns. This one has a more direct connection. I said there's a Kevin Stefanski connection. That's something a lot of people aren't thinking about, but there is an objective connection between Clint Kubiak and Stefanski. Kubiak was the quarterback's coach when in his first year in Minnesota, in Stefanski's last year as the offensive coordinator in Minnesota before taking that Browns job. So Stefanski connection makes sense, and I think not a lot of people are talking about that. But hey, he knows Stefanski. I'm sure they at least have a relationship. Akins makes sense to come in as a blocking tight end. He actually had a decent year for the Browns. Overall, I think tight end is a really interesting spot because I feel like you could go all out, say, hey, we want Juwan Johnson. We got a guy that can catch and block. Or you could say, you know what? We're just going to go get Johnny Munt and have him catch 10 passes a year and just block steadily. And that's all we need. And I really think that's an interesting thing to look out for. Keep an eye on the tight end position, especially if Noah Fant is let go. The bonus position, quarterback. Quarterback is the bonus position. Let's talk about if Geno leaves. If Geno leaves, I listed big money guy as Sam Darnold. He has the obvious Clint Kubiak connection back to San Francisco. He coached him last. He coached him last year. He was his quarterback coach. That is a clear and obvious tie if Geno is gone. Um, However, I don't really want to spend the money it's going to take to get Sam Darnold. So, all in all, that it's just to make sense. It makes sense. I think Darnold would want to come here if Geno's gone. That's the way I see it. Now, for medium money, I said Kirk Cousins, a clear Kubiak connection too. Coached was his offensive coordinator for a year. Kirk had a good year under him. I think if Kirk was looking to revive his career, gets cut from the Falcons, and the Seahawks need a quarterback because Geno got traded or he's cut, and Kirk Cousins was like, "Hey, I'll take a 1 year five. Take a 1 year five, and I'll play for you, Clint, and I'll throw to some of these receivers and let me go to work. Let me be a leader." That would be an interesting name. The experience is there. I think Kirk Cousins, frankly, is a really good name to bring in as a backup. Like, I really think that's what this team needs. They need a steady backup, especially with how much Geno's getting hit. One injury last year, one thing goes wrong, and we're seeing Sam Howell for 7 or 8 games. I just can't deal with that. We need a solid, steady backup. I think Kirk makes sense in both worlds, but especially in a medium money world where Geno's cut, that makes a ton of sense. And I said Justin Fields because what the hell? He can run, right? And he's young and he's started a lot of games at least. Is he a good quarterback? Not really, but he can run. And I think if Geno gets cut or traded, you could say, hey, we're going to run the ball 40 times. We're just going to let Justin Fields do a bunch of read options. We're going to run a triple option offense. And obviously, this is joking, but it's kind of serious. Like the Steelers succeeded early on in the year by having Justin Fields throw the ball 10 times, and they were winning games. I think that's all you really need to say about, hey, maybe Justin Fields could come in if we can build a successful run game. And if the defense plays well, maybe Justin Fields could lead us to a 9-win season if we put together the right things. Of course, this is all if Geno is cut or traded. If Geno stays, which I think is much more likely, I only have bargain bin names listed. Tyler Huntley, Mike McDonald connection. He started a lot of games. He offers a running aspect. Once again, I just want someone that can compete with Sam Howell and make him earn that backup role and also have someone on the practice squad. Brandon Allen is a Kubiak connection. He was on the 49ers last year. He's been on the 49ers for a few years. Apparently, they view him very highly in San Francisco. He was his quarterback's coach. Brandon Allen is another name to look out for as a potential backup, a guy that has experience. He's played around, been with Clint Kubiak. I think that's a name to watch. And then I just listed a general category of assorted veterans. I said Joe Flacco. I said Andy Dalton. I said Josh Johnson, who has a Mike McDonald connection. I said Jimmy G. I said Teddy Bridgewater, who also technically has a Clint Kubiak connection. I'm sure it's not much, but Clint Kubiak was a coach. He was an offensive quality control coach when Teddy Bridgewater was on the Vikings. Yeah, so I just listed those assorted vets. Get guys that have started games, like get a guy in the practice squad that knows what he's doing. Once again, maybe the Seahawks pick a quarterback. Who knows? Things could get crazy. But frankly, if Geno stays, just give me a usable backup and I'm way more comfortable. Like if you gave me Andy Dalton, cool. Let him be a backup. He's a good backup. He's played a lot of games. He played well for the Panthers at points last year. I think that's all that's really need to be said about quarterbacks. And I think that's really all that's need to be said in this video. Next video is the video that will probably be a lot more important. I have the top 3 needs in that video being guard, tackle, and D tackle. So keep an eye out for that. I will be uploading that very soon. In the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts on my players, my positions that I picked, anything. Please let me know in the comments below. And leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, of course. Hit that bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop a podcast. And I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoy your day. Peace out.